Welcome to another episode of Kenny's Kantina, Eating in Style on the Road. Before we get started, I want to point you to a new tab on my website, www.ibcproductions.com/KURY. I will soon have a tab up for Kenny's travel log. It's under construction and we'll have it up soon. You can experience a video of the exciting places I'm exploring, so please check that out. I hope it spurs you to get out and explore for yourselves. One of the reasons I travel to the Pacific Northwest each year is that it's a boat cruising mecca. The Puget Sound and north end of British Columbia offers numerous anchorages and some of the best cruising in the world. Each summer I hop aboard a buddy's boat and we make our way north to Desolation Sound up in British Columbia, living on anchor for 2 weeks. The views on the water up there are fantastic and it's so nice to relax on the boat. One thing I have found is that the boat life is very similar to RV life and the people are friendly as well. So check out my upcoming travel log to watch a video of my adventures boating in Puget Sound and British Columbia. What better recipe to make in a marine wonderland than a good old-fashioned shrimp boil? Today I'm preparing this for family and some of my boat friends. A shrimp boil is a standard along the southern coast. It's a simple one-pot meal that everybody enjoys. A boil is perfect for camping. I like to boil up the shrimp outside and then dump it on newspaper or butcher paper on top of a picnic table. The peel and eat aspect of it is what really makes it fun. The prep time is not too bad. It takes about 10 minutes. The cooking time takes about an hour and a half, depending on how quick your water boils. The recipe I'm making today serves 4 to 6 people. For storage, leftovers, you can keep it in the refrigerator for about a week. I wouldn't recommend freezing this dish, but I don't think you have any problems eating it all up. So the ingredients for this is we want 2 pounds of shrimp, and you want that still in the shell because you want to have that peel and eat aspect of it. You're also going to need a package of andouille sausage, 2 pounds of small red potatoes, a sweet onion, 4 ears of corn, a lemon, a 1/4 cup of shrimp boil seasoning, a stick of unsalted butter, 4 tablespoons of Creole seasoning. And remember, this is all on the website under the recipe tab, so you can access it there. Starting out for the preparation, the first thing we want to do is wash the potatoes and place them in a large stock pot. So let me get the water going, wash those off. And I'm going to plop the potatoes into the pot. All right, so that's in there. The next step is I'm going to peel and cut an onion in half. And then I'm going to take each of those halves into thirds. And then I'm going to separate those onions so they're in slices and drop those on top of the potatoes. And then I'm going to take my lemon and just quarter that and drop those in top. So the onions and the lemon are really just adding flavor to your broth. They're pretty much going to dissipate when you get it all done. So let me fill up my pot now. And I'm going to put about 2/3 of water in that. That'll leave room so when it's boiling, it doesn't boil over. And now I'm going to take my shrimp boil seasoning and I'm going to put that into my measuring cup and dump that in. And then I'm going to just kind of stir that up, get it all stirred up well. All right. So today I'm cooking outside on a outside burner. I'm going to be smelling up the RV park. Everybody's going to be craving and wondering what the heck I'm cooking. So let's take this outside and put it on the burner. Okay, I'm going to get the burner going here on high, and I'm going to cover this to help with the boiling process. And you can figure about 30 minutes for this pot to begin boiling. And I said my neighbors are going to be going, what the heck is going on over here? That's one of the issues that I have when I'm cooking in the RV and outside is my neighbors are always curious what's for dinner. So I'm going to leave that on high heat and boil and go back inside and prepare the other things. Once that starts boiling, it's going to take about 40 minutes for the potatoes to cook. I'm going to cut up the corn. So I'm going to cut these in third chunks each here. You have to kind of put some force into it, going through the cobs, and I'm going to set that aside. Next, I'm going to take the andouille sausage and cut this. I'm going to cut this into about 1.5-inch chunks. I found that that's a good thickness. It helps to keep the sausage juicy and flavorful. The smaller slices, if you do it in 1/4-inch slices, it tends to, you don't get that burst of flavor from the sausage. So I like to use 1.5 inches. Let's get that cut up. Okay, so that's set to the side. Now we have the corn and sausage cut up. Let's check on the boil and see how the potatoes are doing. Go back outside. So when I check the potatoes, I'll pull one up with a big spoon. Pull it up, and I'm going to take a fork and push into it. And the fork goes through easily. It's not crumbling yet. There's still some firmness there. And I've had this on boil now for 40 minutes. Now the next step that I go into is I start adding ingredients one at a time. The next thing I'm going to add in here is the corn. So let me drop the corn in here. So the potatoes take the longest to cook, then comes the corn, the sausage, and then finally the shrimp. And when I open up that lid, boy, you can really smell the aroma coming out of it. So I'm going to cover this. I've got my corn in. And I'm going to let that boil for 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll add the next layer. So it's been 10 minutes. Still boiling good. The potatoes are in there, the corn. Now we're going to add the sausage. Let me drop the sausage in there. And I'm going to cover that. And I'm going to let that boil for 10 more minutes. All right, so it's been 10 minutes. Now it's time to add our final ingredient, the main ingredient of the evening, the shrimp. I'm going to take off the lid and dump my shrimp in and put the lid back on. And it's going to take 5 minutes for the shrimp to cook. I'm going to let that shrimp cook and boil for 5 minutes. Okay, so let me peek in there. Oh man, the smell, the aromas coming off that are really good. So the shrimp looks done. It's a nice pink. Taking my spoon and pulling it up, just making sure it's pink and the meat's all cooked. It'll be a white, opaque color. All right, let me turn off that burner. And I'm going to cover that back up, and I'm going to let the shrimp soak for 5 minutes. That'll give me a nice spice to it. The shrimp is going to continue collecting some of that spice. I'll do it for 5 minutes so it doesn't get overly spicy. You can let it go longer if you like spicier food. So let's let that sit for 5 minutes. Okay, so I've let this sit for 5 minutes. I've brought it back inside the RV. I'm going to put a colander in my sink. And I'm going to dump the shrimp boil through the colander. Ooh, that's hot. Okay. We've got the shrimp out, the boil. I'm going to shake that out, get the moisture out of it, and then I'm going to dump it back into the pot. So you can stop right here and have a very tasty shrimp boil, but I like to go one step further and add a twist of extra flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the butter to the stock pot. Let me stir that around. Getting that butter to melt. Kind of toss it around. So we've got the butter in there. It's melting. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the Creole seasoning to the pot. All right. So we've got the seasoning in there, and now I'm going to continue to toss this, kind of get that seasoning and that butter on top of everything. So I've got that mixed up good. Oh man, this smells so good. Now I've got my picnic table I have lined with newspaper, so I'm going to carry this outside and lay it out on the newspaper. Spread this out. This is half the fun is just sitting around and everybody sitting around the picnic table and peeling it. So just start digging in and peeling it. Let me pick up a shrimp. What I like to do, because I put that butter and that Creole seasoning on it, I like to suck on the shrimp before I peel it. You get those juices and you get that spice. Let me peel the shrimp. I'm going to dunk it into some of my Kenny's cocktail sauce. Add a little flavor. The shrimp is juicy and that cocktail sauce just is a nice nuance added on top of it. So let me try the sausage. I love the sausage in this dish. So I got it. Boy, once you break into that, the juices just flow your mouth. You get the spice of that andouille sausage, so it's a great thing. That came out good. My guests are really going to enjoy that. So some tips for this dish. If you're using frozen shrimp, thaw it ahead of time. If you throw the frozen shrimp into the boiling pot, that'll cut the boil, and it's going to take a little bit longer to cook. So I like to defrost my shrimp ahead of time. I've also found that wild-caught shrimp has a much better flavor than farm-raised, so I try to buy wild-caught whenever I can, especially Gulf Coast shrimp, because this is a southern dish, so if I can get Gulf Coast shrimp, I definitely will use that. You can also substitute, you can do crab in the shell. So over in the Baltimore, Maryland area, boiling crabs and steaming crabs is a big thing, so you can use that. Down in Louisiana, crawfish is used, so you can throw crawfish in this instead of the shrimp and have a crawfish boil. Now, if you can't find andouille sausage, sometimes in my travels I have problems, you can substitute any smoked sausage for this. So don't worry if you don't find the andouille, you can substitute for that. Now, I use a powdered shrimp/crab boil seasoning, but there's also a liquid form out there you can buy and a pouch variety. These will work just fine. But what you need to do is read the instructions to know how much you need to put in for the poundage of shrimp that you're doing. And that tossing of the butter and the Creole season at the end, that can be omitted, but I like that extra flavor that comes with the added butter and seasoning. If you have a party or serving more than the 4 to 6 people, you can use a turkey fryer pot or a second pot and just multiply the recipe. You can make a ton of this. So we successfully prepared a great meal for friends and it made the entire RV park jealous. Remember, you can find this and all my other podcasts and recipes on my website. So enjoy your own shrimp boil with friends and family. Now, my previous show was on Tex-Mex rice, and I received some interesting questions, led me to explore more depth into rice. So thanks to all the viewers who submitted questions. I love to increase my knowledge, and your questions definitely had me hitting the books. Several questions revolved around varieties of rice. Did you know there's 40,000 varieties of rice? So let's get started by touching on some of the varieties. Don't worry, we're not going to go through all 40,000. So our first question comes from Tim in Indiana. He asks, what's the difference in the size of rice as far as regular grain and long grain rice as far as frying them? Aren't all rice the same? Rice comes in different sizes based on the length to width ratio. So short and fat for small grain to long and thin for long grain rice. In general, rice comes in small, medium, and long grain. So I've laid out some of the different varieties of uncooked rice so you can see the difference as I talk about them. So on the left is Valencia. This is a medium grain rice. Next to it is American long grain, then Basmati, and on the right is Jasmine. Both the Basmati and the Jasmine are long grain rices. Sushi is actually made with a small grain rice. Medium grain rices include Arborio, Valencia, and Bomba. These medium grain varieties are often toasted prior to cooking and form the base of paella or for risotto. American long grain, Basmati, and Jasmine are all long grain rices, and we'll talk more about these in a minute. For my Tex-Mex rice, I use American long grain rice, which is in the U.S. is the generic rice of choice. So thanks for your question, Tim. Our next question is from Carol in Colorado. She asks, is Basmati rice good for fried rice in your dish? This is a good question. Basmati rice is a flavorful long grain rice that I often use in other dishes. It comes from India and Pakistan. Now, the characteristics of Basmati rice are different than American long grain rice. When I cook Basmati rice for a dish, I soak it for 20 minutes before applying heat so that the rice absorbs some water, which cuts down on cooking time. I also add a little cumin seed to enhance the flavor. If you toasted Basmati like I do for the recipe for the Tex-Mex rice, you're actually going to close off the rice and it's not going to absorb that moisture. So it may come out either hard or undercooked. So that's a good question, Carol. Thanks. And use the American long grain rice for this dish. Kendra from California asks, is jasmine rice stickier than Basmati? Kendra, both of these are flavorful long grain rice varieties and are similar. Jasmine comes from Thailand, where Basmati comes from India and Pakistan. As I mentioned before, you should soak Basmati rice prior to cook. This will make the Basmati more flaky when it's done. With jasmine rice, you just rinse it and begin cooking in water. As a result of the process and the nature of the rice, jasmine does come out stickier than Basmati. Thanks for the question, Kendra. Our next question comes from Ellen in Idaho. What's the difference between Mexicans frying rice and Japanese and Chinese fried rice? Japanese and Chinese fried rice look like white rice to me, and they fry it up. So, Helen, the fundamental difference is in the timing of the frying. In my Tex-Mex rice, I toast the rice prior to cooking. Chinese fried rice uses pre-cooked rice that then has been refrigerated. The chilled rice is added to the other ingredients and stir-fried together. So the process of preparing the two dishes are different. So thanks, Helen, for the opportunity to clarify on frying and toasting rice and for giving me the chance to whip up some fried rice. I enjoyed eating it. Along the same lines, Bill from Illinois wants to know, what kind of rice do Chinese restaurants use for fried rice? Chinese restaurants usually use jasmine or American long grain rice. So keep this in mind if you're making a fried rice dish at home. So good question, Bill. Gail from Delaware asks, which rice is healthier, white or is Mexican rice healthier? Now, I'm not a nutritionist, but since the rice I use is a long grain white rice, which is a standard white rice in the U.S., both would have the same health considerations. So this was an interesting question, Gail. Thanks. Juanita from New Mexico asks, is quinoa better than rice? I've been told quinoa is healthier for you than rice. And I did some research. Quinoa is a seed from a plant found in South America and is not related to the rice family. There is a definite difference in the appearance to rice both before and after cooking. It is healthier for you because it's higher in protein and lower in carbohydrates. However, this would not work well for a Mexican rice recipe. This was an interesting question to research. Thanks, Juanita. Now, Dorothy from South Carolina asked, should you rinse rice before toasting? So this is actually a really important question. Since the rice is being dropped into hot oil, rinsing it would make the rice wet. And when it's poured into the hot oil, it'll cause the oil to splatter. So as a safety measure, don't rinse your rice beforehand. Be safe, Dorothy. I wouldn't want you to get burned. Thanks. And our last question goes back to a previous episode on carne guisada. So there was one question from that show that I answered on a previous show, but needed to do some more research. So Frank from Colorado asked, can I make carne guisada, and this is a Mexican stew that I made, can I make this in a pressure cooker to eliminate the time it takes to cook your recipe? If so, would you recommend the cooking time at? My response was that I needed to do some research to answer the question. So after doing my research, you can make carne guisada in a pressure cooker. However, the end result will be different. The appearance and the aroma of the dish will be similar, but the difference is going to be in the taste. In my slow cook process on the stove, I layer the various ingredients, which allows time between additions for the flavor of each ingredient to penetrate the meat. This layering creates a complex richness to the dish that's missing from my carne guisada in a pressure cooker where the ingredients are all added and then cooked. Once again, Frank, thanks for your question. I enjoyed doing the research. Now, I want to thank all my viewers and fans who took the time to cook with me and have taken their time out of their busy day to drop me a note with a question or comment. Over 2,000 of y'all have watched all my episodes, so thank you. You enjoying the show is what it's all about, and I appreciate your viewing. I'm excited about my next show. I'll be preparing a breakfast pie. This is a great dish that you can prepare and have it for a quick heat-up breakfast over a few days, which helps if you want to get an early start to your day's adventure or if it's time for you to hit the road. Also in future episodes, I'll be trying out some new products from some new sponsors, so keep an eye out for those. Stay tuned for the next Kenny's Cantina, Eating in Style on the Road. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, previous shows and recipes can be found on my website. Be sure also to check out the new Kenny's RV Travel tab to join me on my exploration. You can also now find Kenny's Cantina on Facebook. I'll be posting additional pics of what I'm cooking and pics of what I'm doing in my travels. So like my page to stay up to date between podcasts. You can also follow me on Instagram. Follow me on those and drop me a note on my social media accounts. So Kenny's Cantina would not be possible without the help of my sponsors, IBC Productions and Roadhog Media Network. So a big thanks to them. See y'all on the road.